for not just a daily bread, but for a peaceful society. Hence, I want to support among the political class of foreign currency from companies investing in Sierra Leone. Mr. Speaker, we are also happy to increase tax in certain sector in order for us to upkeep the dollar. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the policies put forward by the Ministry of Finance and the Bank Governor, you understand the policies are there towards helping the dollarization to be stable in our country. Mr. Speaker, after all the policies, after all the promises, when you look at the projection in the dollar rate, you ask yourself, are they sure and sincere of what they're doing?
I don't think so.
No, they're not sure.
Are they sure?
They're not sure they are not sincere.
Or are they just guessing? Mr. Speaker, after retrieving 30% of all from the companies back to Sierra Leone, you're still projecting an increase by 2026 of the dollar to 3 million leones.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It's in the budget. You know, read that.
Mr. Speaker,
You know, read that.
it is too sad
You didn't have the annex.
that what we have as policies, what is written, the cushions that have been put in place, and the projections do not
You
match.
didn't have the annex.
Sadly, other members in this parliament spent 4 days arguing over the 5% increment. And unfortunate statements were made. Some were saying, oh, it is them over there in the APC that are the importers of rice. They are the business people. The business people are criminals in this country. That is unfortunate. Mr. Speaker, I remember in the last parliament, I called your office.
Mr. Speaker,
You go.
I was expecting you. Nobody has addressed business people.
Somebody did. Somebody did.
This is an honorable house, and you cannot make decisions like that. Nobody on this side has accused business people of being criminals. Let's set the record straight. It has been recorded, and people will come after all that will read these records. Nobody has said business people are criminals.
Nobody can be referred to as a criminal unless he has been convicted by a court of competent jurisdiction. So,
Mr. Speaker, I am sure that the deputy was not frequent in the work. I am very sure. All members of parliament, if you go to the records now and you play the record of the Honorable from Wayamba, the retired captain, you hear him clearly when he said that. He said it in this word. I was expecting he said it. Okay, for the records, Mr. Speaker, for him not to take
Then go
my
to the
time,
answers.
you go to the answers, you go to the records, let me continue my
Yeah.
He said it. He said so.
He can speak for himself. Let him speak for himself. Let him speak for himself. Let him speak for himself.
I really agree that I want to hold on.
Let him man talk for
I
himself.
agree with the leader of the opposition. We should go ahead, but we cannot go ahead in circumstances where the word criminal has been.
Let's go to the records, Mr. Speaker. That's all I have to
Yeah,
say.
you can go to the record.
No, whatever may have happened transpired before the acting leader is denouncing the use of that word himself.
Mr. Speaker, these are not my words.
Look,
Somebody else's word.
No, that I have not said. I said a member on the other side. I said it is unfortunate that members of parliament refer to our business people in Sierra Leone as criminals. He said, so let's go to the record. Let's go to the record.
Go to the answers.
He's only wasting my time.
Go to the answers.
Let us not waste time. Let's go to the record. He said so. He said, I was here. No, he said so. We are just wasting my time. This is usual of you.
I hereby rule that whoever used the word criminal, that word is expunged from the record.
Noted. Mr. Speaker, in the 5th Parliament, I remember there was a report done by the Ministry of the Trade Committee in this parliament, in which we call people in the cement sector to come to this parliament and explain to us why there was an increase in price. Mr. Speaker, I called for that report to be debated in this world. You echoed your voice to it, you agreed, and that report was never presented. Why am I referring to that report? Mr. Speaker, our business people are going through a lot. Whenever there is a shock, an increase in the dollar, they still pushing their prices. So when you take the subsidy and the increment in the dollar, you find out that the increment in the dollar surpasses the subsidy that government is giving. They are not of a man. So we are saying, increasing, when you look at the annex of this budget, and the projection in the increase of dollar, plus a 5% tax added to rice, is killing our people. That is killing. In the area of agriculture, Mr. Speaker, in the area of agriculture, I am not one who believes the feed salon will work. It's not out of bad faith. It's not out of bad faith. Mr. Speaker, all the issues in this budget, buying of seeds, fertilizer, and every other thing that has been mentioned here, has been in operation in the last 5 years. But I'll shock you, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to rice, the rice that are being supplied to our farmers are supplied in June, when the planting season is already over. What has been done to rectify that? Fertilizer is supplied in August. What do you do with that as a farmer?
Nothing.
So the problem is, what we see allocated to the research institute is so small that we cannot do effective research in the agriculture sector. When you look at what is allocated to the seed multiplication, it still means, as a nation, we still have to depend buying seeds out of Sierra Leone. Why not our local produce seeds here? Mr. Speaker, let me come back to the 5%. I thought that tax was going to be an incentive, that if you are importing rice into Sierra Leone, but you are also participating in agriculture in certain ton, you will not pay that 5%. That would have been a way for our importers to confiscate and help and boom our agriculture sector. If you are importing rice in Sierra Leone and you are also buying from our local farmers to boost their own economic growth, at least you have 25%. Let me end, Mr. Speaker. There is a bad culture in Sierra Leone, in which most times Sierra Leoneans go out, they see countries and they come back and they start comparing those countries to us. In the 5th parliament, it was always Rwanda. And in this 6th parliament, in Singapore. Mr. Speaker, whether in your own side or the honor from Western area, there was something missing about Singapore that you did not tell us. And that is where it's sad. Go to Singapore. They are very taxed. If you add up to $14,000 US, you are not paying a single tax on that. In Sierra Leone, the ordinary military officer who paid 25 and 2,500 or I call it now, 2 million euros is paying 30% of pay.
Policies.
What they earn as dividend from shares. Mr. Speaker, in Singapore, if you invest in commercial bank, your dividend out of share is tax-free. And that is why most investors around the world take their money to Singapore. In Sierra Leone, they will tax if you are having a dividend.
And with
that, let me conclude that when people make example of Sierra Leone with other nations, let them go to the details. Let them come back to Sierra Leone and tell us what is good and what is boosting their economy. Not to come and make us look bad as if our country is worse off in the world. Thank you very much.
my implication, of course, I find myself among those who have been making a comparison with Singapore. But let us be candid here, and let us put things in context. Singapore today is a first world country. Sierra Leone remains, since independence, over 60 years ago, it still remains a third world country. Well, hold on. It was not a question of comparing apples with apples. It was simply a way of drawing attention to the fact that we have fallen way behind a country with which we were at par at the beginning of the process of independence. A country that had, as one of the honorable members reminded us, had no natural resource to speak of compared with what we have in this country. And yet, they've ascended to the level of a first world country. When we, to this day, after 60 years, still remain at the bottom of the development line. So that is the comparison. That is the comparison that was made, and I believe it's a valid one. A very valid one. And I'll give the floor to the Honorable Mustafa Salone.
Honorable members, I bring the greetings from the people of Mayamba district. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I want to thank the minister and team for Minister of Finance for putting together a proposal that will alleviate the long suffering of Sierra Leoneans. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I want to give you a short outline of my debate this morning. I'll look at domestic revenue and grants, wages and salaries, agriculture and security, exchange rates, foreign reserves. This is the format my debate will take. I'm just constrained by the time. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I also want to look at the revamping the public sector administration and reach to the implementation of this budget. One of the risks we just saw over the days. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, let me now give you a brief, not detail, how the APC-led government violated our constitution and the Public Financial Management Act of 2016 in section 36, 38, and 39. Mr. Speaker, I draw the attention of this House to section 36, 38, 39 of the Public Financial Management Act of 2016, with special reference to section 2, section 114 of the Constitution, section 116, subsection 1 of section 116 of this Constitution, Mr. Speaker, honorable members. When you look at these provisions I have cited, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution and the PFF Act, both of these documents I have listed were grossly violated during the APC era. These two areas I've cited talks about contingency, presidential warrant, and allocated budgets. These were the budget that the past governments used, and it is in the document that you should not use more than 1% of this particular fund. The debt APC used over 1.5 to 1.8% to send their voice to across representatives. And it is clearly stated, Mr. Speaker, for the records. For the records, Mr. Speaker, let me read. 36. Pursuant to section 116 of the Constitution, the minister shall establish a contingency fund, the amount of which shall not exceed any time 2% of the non-ARR presented in the main estimate of the present financial year. I go to 7. The contingency fund may be withdrawn only under section. You have 2. Under section 2, the aggregate amount of withdrawal from the contingency fund during a financial year shall not exceed 2%. If you check records, and there is no way you can use this fund without legislating, without coming to Parliament, and without the approval of the minister and that of the president. This was used, if you check the records, Mr. Speaker, we are on here, these budgets were used without referring to what I'm quoting right now, the section 2 of this constitution, of the Bill Act. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I want to look at few areas.
Give it detail.
I want to look at page 4, paragraph 18. Mr. Speaker, paragraph 18. Gross international reserves of Bank of Sierra Leone amounted to 42.9 million, equivalent to 3.0 months of import cover. I think over the years, this government, as per the West African Monetary Zone, you look at the critical criteria, one of those in Roman figure 5 says maintain sufficient level of gross official forex exchange reserve, at least 3 months of import cover throughout the period 2025. The honourable member from the other side was talking about the reserve being dropped to 3.0 for 3 months of import cover. I think we are within the threshold of the West African Monetary Zone as Sierra Leone is signature to that particular document. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, over the years, this is the only government that has proven that the foreign reserve has gone up to 7.9 months of import cover since independence. The records can tell. Under the West African Monetary Zone, for which Sierra Leone is a signatory to that particular agreement, the debt government is on record that we dropped below the threshold of the 3 months of import cover. It's on record, Mr. Speaker. That's why I'm quoting the relevant document. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, I want to take you to paragraph 23. Paragraph 23. Overall budget deficit, excluding grants, is estimated at 6.4% of the GDP. The deficit includes is estimated at 5.1%. And this same document says the deficit that will be managed by the central bank should not exceed 10%, and we are still within that threshold. Mr. Speaker, this is the responsible government that is managing the fiscal article of this country. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, I will now take you to the domestic revenue and grants, page 28 of this document, paragraph 98. Mr. Speaker, domestic revenue is what we are all struggling about here. We're talking about here since day one. There is no way we can finance government projects, development projects, without raising our own revenue. I was disappointed a bit when my colleagues from the other side were talking about revenue generation. Revenue generation is key for any national development, and that is just exactly what this government is planning to implement. No. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, the Maputo Protocol talks about 10% allocation to the agriculture. I want to take you to record that we've allocated 7% in principle, but when you look at practically, we are going to allocate over 10% of the budget to this particular agriculture. Mr. Speaker, the 5% tax on rice is being ring-fenced, and in financial terms, when we talk about ring-fenced, it cannot be used for any other purpose unless a specific purpose, that is the agricultural sector. Ring-fenced. What we should now do as parliamentarians is now to monitor the Minister of Finance how that ring-fenced funds is being used, so that it can be used for the appropriate or for the specific reason they have highlighted in this document. If you put that together, yearly this country was losing $18 million just on importation because of the tax of 0%. With the restoration of this, Mr. Speaker, if you take $18 million, if you convert that in euros, it's over 360 billion euros. That can construct over 72 to 100 primary schools in this country. That can tap over 80 kilometers road in this country. Mr. Speaker, if we are the masses, the general public was not benefiting from the reduction of price of rice, then we are again losing the tax. I see no sense in that. So it is not necessary. It is not necessary for the Ministry of Finance through the NRA to raise funds to be able to sponsor the Salone initiative. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, it's not about the Salone. Again, agricultural equipment are tax-free. No GST on those equipment that's been imported for agricultural production. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, I am just thinking aloud. With all these international external shocks. If the SFP was not to govern now, what will have happened? Just one shot, just a regional shot, the Ebola, we declare this country austerity. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, with all of these shocks, we are still able to service our nation. We are still able to pay salaries for time. We are still providing basic necessities. We are still providing life. We are still providing water. We are still providing medicine. When we talk about the GDP of a country, the weight bill, Mr. Speaker, the weight bill as per financial terms should not exceed 7% of your GDP, and we are within that bracket. We are still at 6.4% of our GDP. So that means this is a very responsible government that is managing this country. As other members, we should not be in haste. We should not be in haste to make decisions or to make points that we think are just for the gallery or for the general public. But they should be very, 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 very solid and to put us to where we are as a financial state. Mr. Speaker, honourable members. Before I take my seat, you did ask a question, Mr. Speaker. Where did we work as a nation? Mr. Speaker, honourable members, where we went from as a nation was the closure of Timabo, the closure of SFPNB, the railway. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, the first hosting of the AOU in 1980, when our currency was 50% of the British pound. Mr. Speaker was part of that, but he was not too sure of advising because there was some interest that he didn't want money. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, our loans was 50% equivalent. Our loans was 50%.
You refer to Mr. Speaker. The elections in 1980. In 1980, I was a senior staffer of the Commonwealth Secretariat.
I said Mr. Speaker was within the educational arena of this country. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, as I conclude, our loans was 50% equivalent to the British pound. It was during the OAU when the then President Stephen decided to float our currency to the value. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, all of you are struggling now with in terms of finance, in terms of making this country rich, is just in the effort by this SFP to put these particular measures in place. Where we went wrong is to allow the country to go into one party state at that time, Mr. Speaker. You know that the leaders went wrong as a nation. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, assuming those days when we have the mineral mining companies booming in this country, the 30% repatriation as amended in section 52 of the Foreign Financial Management Act of 2021. That was amended, Mr. Speaker. Assuming we have repatriated all 30% of all those forex that we are going outside of this country, by now nobody will have been talking about exchange rates and variance. But Mr. Speaker, honourable members, on that note, I want to call this budget as a redeemer budget, which redeems the budget. It's not a total budget. It's a budget that is here today and to provide the service of this country. Thank you, Mr.
Honourable member, the only thing I would like to tell you, I can account for where I was throughout the 1980s. And in 1980, I was in the United Kingdom, not in Salone.
What's wrong on that side of the side?
I give the floor to the Honourable Daniel Brian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, based on a very limited time, I go straight to the point. And my intervention this morning will be premised on the following. Number one, under Fiscal, what went wrong with the Tomogon project? Number two, how proper is the 2024 budget? Number three, how proper is your wage bill? Mr. Speaker, honorable members, promising from paragraph 47 to 56, page 12 to 15, which speaks about feeding Salone as the next flagship program of His Excellency Dr. Julius Malabio, President of Senate.
His Excellency.
I want to commend him in the first place to inform this House and by extension Salonians that Tomabom, which is the yardstick of Fiscal, did not start now. His Excellency the President has started Tomabom project long before now. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I have documents to the effect to prove to you in the event you ask me for source that way back on 25th of September 2019, way back 25th of September 2019, there is a document here that proves, I read the main topic says, Tomabom Rice Project is at its 11th hour of starting operations.
We have the evidence.
Tomabom Rice Project is at its 11th hour of starting its operations. Mr. Speaker, this is dated 25th of September 2019. If you so wish, I will give you the copy for your perusal. Mr. Speaker, following that, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, on June 11th, 2021, His Excellency the President launched the Tomabom Rice Project. It was officially launched by His Excellency and the First Lady. There's a document here to prove it to you. For your permission. Dated 11th of June 2021.
Another one.
After the 11th hour of Operation 2021, it was formally launched. Mr. Speaker, following the launching, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, one of the first, remember this one, it was stated, additional grants. So I did all I could to look for the original grant, but I could not see it. But the additional grant given to Tomabom project after its launching was given in November 2021. After the launching in June 2021, in November 2021, the sum of $12.16 million was given for the operation of the Tomabom project. Mr. Speaker, if you want the source, I have the source here. $12.16 million was given to Tomabom for its operations. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, on the same document again, in July 2022, the whole project was at $7 million. But by way of tranches, $16.16 million was given, and then based on performance base, it was promised that the rest will be given in tranches.
Wow.
In compliance to that agreement, in November of 2022, the following year, another $1.9 million was given for Tomabom projects. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, unfortunately, as we speak now, not even 50 kilograms of rice is evidence for the Salone project. What went wrong? Project?
Where's the money?
Mr. Speaker, the question is what went wrong with the Tomabom project? And in addition to that, the Chinese government also gave 50,000 bags of rice to support Salone in schools. But the question is what went wrong? Mr. Speaker, this parliament is a digital parliament. Under your watch, we are not only dealing with analog, but we are also dealing with digital. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in 2019, you can check from your tablets, and the leadership of this house, under the watch of
The Indian government, check your iPads. The Indian government,
Check your iPad.
gave $30 million. $30 million. If you want my source, I will give you the source. The source. If I refer you to Salone Telegraph.
Right, correct.
Salone Telegraph. The date.
You know guy iPad.
Check your iPad.
Correct.
Salone Telegraph. And just type Indian government support to Totomo project in Sierra Leone.
Thank you,
it
sir.
will appear. $30 million was given. But up to date, we cannot post of even 50 kilos of rice. What went wrong?
What went wrong?
Mr. Speaker, what went wrong? I move to the next one because of time. Mr. Speaker, how proper is the 2024 budget? Mr. Speaker, honorable members, referring you to paragraph 33, page 7, specific reference to Roman number 6 and number 7, but also Roman number 6. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, every week, Minister of Finance conducts press briefing. Every week. The first press briefing, during the first week after the 2024 budget was passed by this honorable House, Mr. Speaker, the honorable minister, the substantive minister, on behalf of the ministry, had this to say, and I quote, I will give you the reference. If you ask me for the source, I say the source is the very finance minister of the Republic of Sierra Leone.
You said after which budget was passed?
After the 2024 budget, the Finance Act. After the Finance Act, 2024 was passed in this parliament.
No, it's the
The Finance Act. You know it's a collective package, but the Finance Act. Okay, the speaker of the law. I'm sorry. After the Finance Act 2024 was passed by this honorable House, the Honorable Minister of Finance and his team had a first press briefing on the Finance Act. And he held this to say, Mr. Speaker, the topic says 5% import duty on rice will support and promote local rice production. The question is how? How? I further read this statement, and he says, Mr. Speaker, and I quote, and I will give you the copy, the Minister of Finance is the source. It says, the Minister of Finance, Bangura, has stated the 5% import duty tax restored on imported rice in the 2024 Finance Act will not only raise revenue for the government, but also protect and promote local rice production in the country. Mr. Speaker, in addition, his Financial Secretary, Matidingi, also had this to say. With your permission, I quote, after that I will furnish you with a copy. The source is the Minister of Finance. Matidingi, Financial Secretary, had this to say, I quote, similarly, the Financial Secretary, Matidingi, in the weekly government press briefing, noted that the import duty tax on rice is not new in Sierra Leone, said Dr. Kisho, but was suspended in 2009 by the government due to global crisis. Now take note of this. Number one, the import duty 5% was there before 2009, but it was suspended by Corona government as a result of global crisis. Take note. And then paragraph 4 of the 2024 budget statement here, page 2, is also stated that it's as a result of global crisis that this government is adding 5% tax. Now let us compare these two.
The irony.
Let us compare these two. The Corona government exempt the tax because of global crisis.
Yes.
While the Bio government
Add the tax.
impose the tax because of global crisis. When come to say,
I hate to say this, but that does be reminded. You've exhausted your time.
Wrap up. wrap up.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Financial Secretary went on to state their reasons why they choose to impose the tax. And with your permission, I will quote him. He says, before that,
That's the last thing.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I will read the vote and I go to my last point. With your permission. I will read the vote and go to my last point. Please, Mr. Speaker. The vote says, it further explains that since the government has been losing about $18 million annually, but the exemption, he said, has not influenced the cost of a bag of rice. So meaning, since the 5% tax was removed by former government, and then he went with it until 2017, and the former government, it worked. That was why the price of rice per bag at that time was at most maximum 300. 200. After they took office, as far as he is concerned, the mathematics is concerned, under the government, it never worked.
It doesn't work.
And because of that, they have decided to impose. But they decided to lose. Say there's something behind the bill. I removed the bill. You know what I saw? I saw after lifting the bill that, oh, this budget also too. Not to proper business I want to. Now they think you're not like that million. How proper is your wage bill? Paragraph 30, page 6, paragraph 37, 38, page 9, especially Roman numbers 1 to 6. You know, when I saw those 3 guys, I said to myself, did he consult the State House in preparing these proposals, fine proposals? Did you consult State House? Mr. Speaker, honorable members, we are talking of the wage bill. Mr. Speaker, you have Minister of Agriculture, you have Director, you have Deputy Minister of Agriculture 1, Deputy Minister 2, you have Director of Livestock.
You promised that was your last one.
It's my last point. Mr. Speaker, with all those ones, do you need special advisor to President as on rice specialist? Do you need rice specialist? Where is Salone? Salone is full of scientists, female scientists, PhD holders. Whose rice specialist will be more specialized than Salone staff? Mr. Speaker, and with that, Mr. Speaker, with the Ministry of Employment, do you need another presidential advisor on rice now? Do you need it? Mr. Speaker, honorable members, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, do you need with Ministry of Environment, this one is so also, with Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, do you need another office in the office of the President on renewable energy and climate change? As I speak right now, I sense the Minister of Environment crying. Minister of Environment crying, say, give me that climate change. Give me that climate change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of this noble house, I greet you all. I am Mariam Mamuli Azumbo, honorable from Pujon District. I want to thank the Minister of Finance and his team of experts for putting a very laudable budget together, which has brought smiles to the face of many women who have heard about it. Many women are vulnerables, disabled, and even children who have heard about the new things and beautiful things that are in the budget. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of this noble house, I would like to talk about the social protection issues which are affecting us as women, which are affecting all vulnerables in this country. I would also talk about our flagship Fit Salone project, which is not only addressing our livelihoods, our lives, it's also addressing social protection issues for all of us in this country. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, our imports of rice for many years, even as a child, I know that rice has been quite valuable to us, but it is, for me, it is unjust that we continue to import rice in this country to eat our own staple food. It is wrong, it is unjust, it is a shameful act for my government, I'm sorry to say. This has to stop, because in many of the countries I have visited, their local rice is more valuable, it's more available, and it's cheaper than rice that is imported, and healthier than rice that is imported. We don't know whether this rice that is coming into our country is genetically modified. We don't know what the chemicals are in that rice. Our rising blood pressure, our diseases, strokes, and everything that we have, we are not questioning. But as a public health person, I know that there is something wrong with the food that is coming into this country. So, Mr. Speaker, if 25% of our annual budget is going into import of rice, and over $200 million per year is going into rice, then it is wise for our government to say, let's go back and feed ourselves healthy food. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about livelihoods, we think about women, we think about the number, the percentage of women we know that are in agriculture, and how Fit Salone is going to encourage those women to continue to feed themselves and their families. We know that women are the ones that take care of families. And in the budget, there is allocation for women farmers. And women, market women who are leading groups to be benefiting from livelihood projects that are coming from NACSA, Munafa funds, and micro-enterprise, small micro-enterprise developers are going to be really happy because of the cut in taxation, the GST for these small enterprises, because of what we have done in the budget and what the strategies we have taken to increase revenue. And most of the revenue that's going to be ring-fenced, coming back to us in ways that are going to benefit women, children, and other vulnerable groups. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of this noble house, we know that fisheries is going to benefit women and youth. And young people, we know, are so idle that they have resorted to all sorts of antisocial behavior, including drug abuse. All of us are aware of the menace that is waiting for us if we don't act quickly. So in increasing the livelihood options for our children, for our young people and women in our communities, at chiefdom level, there are going to be fisheries groups. At community level, there are going to be groups of women that are going to be supported with funds from this project. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, we need to welcome the changes, the strategies that our Ministry of Finance has put in place to protect the livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of this House, there are considerations also for reducing our vulnerability to climate change and environmental issues in this budget. We have in this budget the taxation on plastic also. Plastic is a menace. Plastic is causing floods. Plastic now, if you want to produce plastic, you have to pay more. And that money comes back to the government. So if we reduce the amount of plastic we are using and producing, it's going to help us whilst we use climate-friendly materials like paper. In other countries like Rwanda, I would say Rwanda, yes, we need to praise them. You go to a shop, they will give you plastic. They will give you a pack made of biodegradable paper. If we resort to these kinds of strategies, we are going to clean up our environment. So the Ministry of Finance and my government has been so considerate to look at all of these vulnerabilities and do it and make sure that strategies are in place to get revenue revenue from them and also to protect us. We know that there are taxes have been harmonized around alcohol, bottled alcohol that is produced here in this country, and alcohol that is coming in. When alcohol, you are producing alcohol here in this country, you are going to be paying less than somebody who's importing alcohol into the country. So, even tobacco is something that you won't be happy to buy because it's going to be more expensive. And it's not good for our health. So our government has been very considerate to ensure that taxes are levied in such a way that we are protected, our health is protected. So we must appreciate, read properly, get to know what the realities, what the facts are in the budget, and then we'll start to argue that it's wrong or it's right. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, I'll talk about health. Health related to our women, our girls, and our children. The budget is taking care of sexuality education, which we know is affecting our women, it's affecting our adolescents. The budget is also making sure that free health care continues for under 5s, women, and pregnant women. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of this House, the health system will be supported so that there is rehabilitation of secondary and primary hospitals in both the north and the south of the country. We also are going to launch our cancer diagnostic treatment hospital. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, these are the areas that every government should invest in. Cancer is a silent killer for our women. For all of us, we are vulnerable, and we don't know where this cancer is coming from. When we are eating our native rice, there was not so much cancer. When we are eating our natural maggi from our trees, our plants, and our insect source of protein, we are not getting cancer. But now we are importing, and we want to continue to import. Let me ask those who are questioning 5% on rice. 5% on rice is too small for your life. Because when you are sick, you are going to be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to get well. Let us eat healthy and live healthy. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, our government through this budget is going to be supporting the emergency, completing the emergency hospital in Podloko. Public health emergency is a priority now for our government, and we are investing in operationalizing the National Public Health Emergency institution. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, mental health has become a menace. Most of us here are suffering from mental health. If you see us shouting like this sometimes, we are not behaving like normal people sometimes. It is because of mental health. We see a coup d'etat. In 5 months, a government suffers from 3 attempted coup d'etats. There is mental health issue. So our government has recognized and has set up a public health commission. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, our women and children need to be protected and provided for, because we know that poverty starts with the woman in the home. Poverty starts with the child. Every child is exposed to one form of poverty or another in this country. So my government, your government, and His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, the lion, yes. He will continue to protect us. He will continue to work on strategies, and the ministry will continue to work on strategies to bring in revenue so that most of these ring-fenced funds will benefit those who are vulnerable. I thank you very much.
I thank the honorable member for our contribution to this debate, which compliment I also extend to all those who have spoken before. At this juncture, I will now direct the interchange to take place between the acting minister or deputy minister 2 and deputy minister 1 of finance. I just want the House to note that the Deputy Minister 1 is coming at this time because, as you will all appreciate, she's acting as in the absence of the substantive minister, and that entails constant movement between her ministry and the State House, for reasons that you can well imagine. So it is not because she did not regard her presence here to be important, precisely because she has now finished and immediately come to attend to her duties here. That's a testament of how seriously she regards her role here. So welcome, Madam Minister. And I want to thank your deputy for having stood in your place while you were away. Let me now just briefly tell you that I've allowed 3 debaters on each side of the aisle. We've now completed 3. We have 3 more to go, and then we'll wrap up the debate. Okay, sorry, we've completed 4. I beg your pardon. We have 2 more debaters to go, and then the leaders will wrap up. And after they have wrapped up the debate, I intend to allow you sufficient time for you to respond, taking into account the various views, the comments, the observations that have been made. And that should take us to 2:30, when we are required by the standing orders to bring the deliberation on the second reading of the bill to a final close. The second reading to a final close. And of course, you know the subsequent procedures that will follow. So I just want to bring you up to speed, Madam Minister, so you can now feel comfortable that you'll be able to follow the debate. I will now give the floor to the Honorable Aaron Aruna Kuruma, and the last speaker before we wind up the debate will be the Honorable Ibrahim Tawakman.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I want to take this moment to thank the Minister of Finance for putting up this very wonderful document. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, let me quickly, even though the note was important itself during the submission, but for clarity, let me quickly respond to the honorable member from Moyamba District. He made reference to section 36 and 37 of the Public Financial Management Act of 2016, where he claimed that the APC government was spending around 1.5 to 1.8%. And as per that act, it is saying that it must not be above 2%. So we are very constitutional. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the honorable member from Karadugo was very much insightful when he was asking questions. Mr. Speaker, the most, how can I say, the most critical one is the fact that you have a speaker who has been a member of parliament before. You have a clerk who has been a member of parliament before. And then you have a parliamentary advisor. Mr. Speaker, what is even more worrying is when you go to the budget, the government has proposed to recruit 100 consultants. So don't be surprised that we'll soon see specialists in potato, specialists in cassava, specialists in sometimes even specialists in cocoa and Mr. Speaker, this consultant, Mr. Speaker, their salaries are even more than yours.
Mr. Speaker.
These consultants are even more than your salary, Mr. Speaker. Let's not start this way.
I want to make clarification.
Mr. Speaker.
Let's see if it's a clarification. Yes.
Section 38 of the PFM Act, special warrants of the president.
Is it 38 or 36? What is it?
Section 36.
I said from 3 presidential warrants on allocated expenditure and contingency. You have 36, 38, and 39. They speak to various issues. 38 speaks about not more than 1%. So I listed them. If you go to Annex 3, now of this, you go to Annex 3, Roman figure 7, you now see that those are applied clearly. Contingency, unallocated, and presidential warrant. And 38 speaks about presidential warrant. You have 2% for contingency, you have more than 1% for presidential warrants. 38 of that act. Thank you, sir.
I hope you have taken note of my time, but I'm sure we all follow the debate in FS 36 and 37, and also I speak to contingency fund, and as per the law, it should be 36, not above 2%. Mr. Speaker, members, in 2018, the first speech of the President, Mr. Speaker, he made reference to a paragraph which I love so much. And with your leave, Mr. Speaker, I want to read that, just an excerpt of that particular paragraph. He says, I am making this against the backdrop of the worst economic situation that this country has faced since independence, and characterized by double-digit inflation, low revenue mobilization, high domestic debt burden, unsustainable external debt, and new areas to contact. Mr. Speaker, when the Minister of Finance brought the supplementary budget in July of that year, he quantified this statement. Mr. Speaker, what were the variables when the Minister of Finance, then Mr. Honorable J.J. Safar, when he brought the Finance Act, he said, Mr. Speaker, in page 4, paragraph 15, the double digit the double digit the president referred then to was 14.4% as of March of 2018. Mr. Speaker, already members, the loan as of page 5 of paragraph 24, Mr. Speaker, he made a reference that the loan was relatively stable in the first half of 2018, that is January to March, that was the days of the APC. Mr. Speaker, the depreciation of the loan at that time is 1.7%. Mr. Speaker, members, the exchange rate at that time was 7,500 euros. Mr. Speaker, remember, the public debt, as per the supplementary budget, I'm not quoting any APC statement here, these are statements made by the SAP budget. Mr. Speaker, page 5 of the supplementary budget of July, the public debt of our nation stood at 16.96 trillion, which is equivalent to $2.2 billion. Mr. Speaker, the gross reserve of our nation was $507.79 million. Our per capita income was $504. Mr. Speaker, 6 years down the line, we now have a budget before us here. Mr. Speaker, the variables are clear. The inflation, which the government inherited at 14.4, which they said was the worst
since independence,
now rose to 54.5%. With an increase of 40% in just 6 years. Mr. Speaker, the yield, which was depreciated by just 1.7%, is depreciated by over 60%. Mr. Speaker, the exchange rate, which was 7,500, Mr. Speaker, it increased from 7,500 to 22.5%, over 200%. Mr. Speaker, other members, the public debt, which was 16.96 trillion in 2018, as per the supplementary budget of this government, Mr. Speaker, as per the Appropriation Act we have here, Mr. Speaker, not my words, these are the words of the minister, I can read the reference. When you go to page 4 of the 2024 budget, Mr. Speaker, the wage bill has increased from 16.96 trillion to 53.9 trillion. Mr. Speaker, the foreign reserve has depleted. The foreign reserve has depleted from $707 million in 2018 to $432.9 million in 2024. Mr. Speaker, our per capita income, which is worrying, that is talks about, Mr. Speaker, our per capita income has also dropped from $404, Mr. Speaker, to $434 in 2023, 412 in 2024, and Mr. Speaker, even in 2028, which means there is no solution, even in 2028, the government is projecting that our per capita income is going to be $483, which is still way below how it inherited the economy in 2018, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, Mr. Speaker, if we are experiencing, Mr. Speaker, the President said in 2018, we had the worst economic situation since independence, Mr. Speaker, with all those variables then in 2018. Mr. Speaker, I'm the very outside. I can communicate and say here that, Mr. Speaker, the economic situation this government has carried us through, Mr. Speaker, is the worst this nation has ever faced. British colony, this economic colony is taking away. Mr. Speaker, is the worst economic situation we have ever faced. This Salone became British colony in no way. And Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the minister is very sincere. I want to commend him. Mr. Speaker, members, I want to invite the House to Annex 15B. Annex 15B, Mr. Speaker, I am sure the disclosure of all our public debt has led to rest the debate that the then executive government of late President Taba left a zero debt to this country. Mr. Speaker, when you go to that schedule, it gives you a detailed breakdown of how much loans, how much debt was left behind by the then government of His Excellency Ahmed Taba. Mr. Speaker, the TV, Mr. Speaker, for records. And Mr. Speaker, I want you to, if you have the budget speech, please make the reference to Mr. Speaker. 15B, Mr. Speaker, if you go to system 15C, you go to 15C, Mr. Speaker, it is clear that health service rehabilitation, that loan was taken in 1998. Who was the power in 1998? Mr. Speaker, the years are clear. From 2007, 2005, 2005, as the list goes on. Mr. Speaker, all of the loans, when you quantify, when you do the summation of all of those loans, Mr. Speaker, before we took over governance, what we inherited as a domestic, a public debt was $237 million. This cannot be worse. You can add, Mr. Speaker. I've made references when you add all of the loans that fall within 1996 to 2007, Mr. Speaker, those loans amounted to $237.1 billion. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, Mr. Speaker, the member from Moamba was talking about illegality. And Mr. Speaker, if any government has ever been into illegality, it is this government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Public Financial Management Act of 2016, Section 26, 2, A and B is clear on how government will expend money from our consolidated funds. Mr. Speaker, members, I want you to read with me, Mr. Speaker, very serious, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, please read with me, sir.
God bless you, sir. God bless you, sir. God bless you, sir. God bless you.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members. Mr. Speaker, honorable members. Please let reference to your budget. Mr. Speaker, for your records, Mr. Speaker, 26(1) of the Public Financial Management Act reads, Mr. Speaker, with your leave, Mr. Speaker. It says, public money may not be spent except as expressly authorized by the Constitution or an Act of Parliament or an Appropriation Act under an Appropriation Act. Mr. Speaker, what we appropriated to the government in 2002 to be spent, in 2022 to be spent, Mr. Speaker, was 11.8 trillion. Mr. Speaker, what they spent, Mr. Speaker, as seen in this statement, is 16.1 trillion.
Wow.
They overspent by 1.3 trillion, Mr. Speaker.
Without a
That
supplementary
is illegality.
budget.
And also, Mr. Speaker, when Section 111 of the Constitution, of the Constitution talks about how money should be expended from a consolidated fund. Mr. Speaker, for record, Mr. Speaker, even for the office of the President, Mr. Speaker, once we allocated or what this House appropriated to be spent by the office of the President was 76.5 billion euros. Mr. Speaker, when you make reference to Annex 3, vote number 110, Mr. Speaker, the President was appropriated an amount of 76.5 billion. Mr. Speaker, guess what was spent under that office? Mr. Speaker, an amount of 171.8 billion was spent. The President overspent in his office an amount of 95.3 billion euros. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, what was appropriated to that ministry to be spent, Mr. Speaker, was 68.4 billion, Mr. Speaker. 68.4 billion in 2022. Mr. Speaker, what this ministry spent, Mr. Speaker, was an amount of $192.5 billion. The Minister of Finance overspent by over 124 billion euros. That is illegality. Mr. Speaker, the office of the Chief Minister, we budgeted an amount of 21.4 billion. What we overspent is 36.8 billion. And Mr. Speaker, this is an affront to the dignity of this House.
Completely.
Mr. Speaker, this Parliament is serious about controlling excesses in the government sector. If you are serious about what the Constitution mandates us to do, to checkmate the executive, this is an area. It's also when they are abrogated a constitutional provision and also a provision in the Public Financial Management Act. Mr. Speaker, with your leave, Section 111 reads, there shall be a consolidated fund into which, okay, let me read 3. 1113. No money shall be withdrawn from the consolidated fund except where the issue of those money has been authorized, 1, by an Act of Parliament.
Act of Parliament.
2, by supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary
Mr.
budget.
Speaker, I have the 2022 supplementary. All of these amounts have applied. They are not part of the 2022 supplementary. Which means these amounts are illegally spent and Parliament must investigate them. On that note, Mr. Speaker.
That's not.
On that note, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the members, the way to be, Mr. Speaker, is very serious. Because of the time we use the teachers, we use the nurses as scapegoats. We fail to really address what the issues are. Mr. Speaker, it's make reference to Annex XL 41147, the foreign missions, Mr. Speaker. That is where we are spending so much.
Huge.
That is where we are spending so much.
Deputy ambassadors, all of us.
That is where we are spending so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in
Deputy ambassadors.
Mr. Speaker, the government budget in 2023 was 249.1 billion euros. Mr. Speaker, there is a projection now for 2024. This amount is going to rise from 349.1 billion to 775.6 billion. That's the way it is, Mr. Speaker, last year also support the former year meeting. The former year meeting, Mr. Speaker. That is corruption, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you can swear on that note, Mr. Speaker, if you can spend 6 years for the monitors a building, And Mr. Speaker, let me show you the amount that has been appropriated for the money that billion. Over 8.something billion.
You could have kept that building.
Have been spent for the money just a billion. In the state government 6 years, and they have spent close to 10 million. So just the money is structure. How much will it cost to construct it?
To reconstruct it.
Mr. Speaker, I want to make a note. I'm not going to request from the government for my road for now because I know that the president is still challenging his own roads. But Mr. Speaker, we have coming in this week, and that is the law. Mr. Speaker, we have a responsibility to also help the government. Mr. Speaker, not member. The other members from Sabaya and others have raised those issues.
A serious thing.
Mr. Speaker, as smaller as FG goal is, they have properly rehabilitated their road from Atotoka to Go. What will it cost for a multinational company like Europe to rehabilitate the road linking Magoroka to Benugu? Mr. Speaker, the economy was also spread by their equipment. That's what is impossible now. I'm therefore calling on them, Mr. Speaker. We know they can do it, but we are calling on them, on behalf of the people of Sokolini, to rise up to the expectation of not just the people of Salone, but to the government, to make sure that they come to the head of government to ameliorate the issue of our vote in Sokolini. On that note, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you very much and God bless you.
To stand the house down for reasons you may very well understand.
Yes, he did. Chawa, you know be there. Advice give other man. You know be there. Huh? You know me the watch. No, no, sorry for now. For answer, we see our race. You know be.
The Speaker of Parliament don't stand the House for 5 minutes, so we must stay live.
Yeah.
Debate continues.
Thank you. Any second?
So second, Mr. Speaker.
All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it, and I give the floor to the honorable member from the Western area.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable members. So much has been said about the budget before us, presidential statements made in the past, and other budget speech led in this House. But Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleague from Tokolili, while taking due note of the fact that part of the increased expenditure that we are incurring as a government is because of foreign missions
he failed to state in his submission that those missions were part of the submission made to this House as part of the achievement by the former President, Dr. Ernest Bai Koroma. Mr. Speaker, honorable member, in his valedictory presidential address to this House, his final address, stating his achievement, he said that they have established, he said more than ever before, we have moved to strengthen bilateral relations. This year alone, over 30 ambassadors.
Honorable member, again, I'll stand the House down for 10 minutes.
I don't need to say after I won't say anything. I won't go ahead.
The speaker don't stand the House down again, so when I stay tuned, as no golf, we'll continue for their live. Just stand the House down for 5 minutes.
No, I go to the document. I think I want to go to the otherwise.